Welcome back, everybody, on the Coffee and Grace podcast with Amanda. And I am here with my very special guest and friend, Jenny. And she is coming on today to help us learn how to deal with trying times. And her story is going to encourage you, inspire, and bless you, I know for sure. So thank you so much for coming on today, Jenny. For those who don't know you yet, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Virginia, but I go by Jenny, and I am 27 years old. I live in coastal Virginia, and I have a just now 1 year old son. He turned one on Saturday, and um, I have been posting on YouTube for a little bit. I've been saved since I was a child, um, and but I didn't get fundamental until I was about 20, 20 years old. Um, and so, yeah, so for the past 7 years, primarily, I've been how I am now, believing what I believe now. So, yes.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, welcome. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. So you radiate so much joy and peace. And when people meet you, they may not realize the journey that you have been walking for the last 8 months. So would you mind sharing a bit about your story and your husband's passing with us?
Yeah. So, 8 months ago, on April 18th, I became a widow. Um, my husband, he was on his way to work, providing for his family like any good husband does. And he was in a car accident. Thankfully, it was just a single car, so no one else was injured. But yeah, so that was what happened. But ironically enough, um, there was a bystander who came out of their home and went to go kind of tend to him as before the EMTs got there, and it was another believer, and just sat with him and prayed with him until the EMTs got there. So even in his moment of most need, when I wasn't able to be with him, God sent someone else to be there with him.
That's so
Um,
beautiful. I'm so sorry for your loss, but I'm so glad in his final moments he had another believer with him, praying with him. I did not realize that. That's beautiful.
yes, I just remembered that. So yeah. Um, But we were married for 4.5 years. We met in 2020 and got married in 2021. So, not letting the grass grow under us, we just, went ahead and had a whirlwind romance, and we were very happy. And like I said, we got married in 21, and then in 2024, my son Mario the third, he came on the scene, and for 4 months we had just the three of us. So it was really nice.
Such a beautiful story. I loved meeting you and MJ at the last conference. I can't wait to see you guys again. And my boys love MJ too. So that was super fun. Thank you for sharing that, your story with us. So, how has your faith in Christ sustained you during these last 8 months? I know they've been hard, and at the same time, you've seemed to just pull right through this and just with such grace. And I mean, it's just so beautiful how you've been able to come through this really difficult time. So, share how your faith has helped you.
So I would say the number one thing that my faith has helped me with is just, I guess, helping me realize what I truly believe, um, and and kind of putting it in the forefront. Um, because people talk all day about what they believe, and so many people claim the name of Christ and claim that they were Christians, but so many atheists, they say, "Oh, I believed in God until my grandma died," or "I believed in God until my wife left me," or something like that.
Mhm.
um, and so I guess like when you really have something big happen in your life, something very traumatic, it makes you take inventory of what's really in you. Like if you squeeze an orange, orange juice is going to come out. If something else comes out, then it's not really an orange. And so I feel like I was really just kind of my feet were held to the fire, and it's like I can trust God. Like I've studied enough and I've read enough and I've seen enough in my life to know that this does not negate the faithfulness of God. This does not counteract or just diminish who He is. God is the God of the living, not the dead. And so if I believe that my husband is saved, which I wholeheartedly do, then he's not really dead. He just transitioned. And why God allowed that to happen or why it happened, it might not be for me to know, but I can trust him because I know that all things work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose.
Right.
And so I just rest on that. I just rest in knowing that I'm going to see him again and that I'm thankful for the time that we got because a lot of women today don't even get to be married to a guy that they respect and love for even a little bit of time. And I
Right.
got 4 years.
Right.
So that's all you can do is just be thankful.
Right. Right. That's so beautiful. I love that. Being thankful definitely helps us to get through a lot of things in the Christian life. So that is beautiful. I love that. What about your personality do you think has helped you come through this easier, in addition to your faith?
I would say the number one thing about my own just personality and natural disposition is the fact that I don't let things bog me down. Um, I don't let things really just stick to me. My dad, he's always said this about me is that I'm the kind of person that I just let things ride off my back like a duck. Um, and so I I think people are different, and so I feel like it's kind of unfair to say like like pat someone else on the back and be like it's gonna be okay, like you're gonna be fine because someone else, just their physical brain makeup, they might be feeling like it's not going to be okay. Like it is the end of the world. Um, but I don't know. I don't know what it is. I mean, I really can't explain it because I've just kind of always been like that. Like I've had, I mean, everyone's had, tough breaks in their life. I've had things that were very disappointing. Um, but it's just like everything's going to be okay. Like I'm just gonna keep pushing and things are gonna work out. And this is a setback, but it's not the end. And I'm just gonna move forward. But I don't know. I can't really put a finger on exactly why I am the way that I am. Um, I think I have a really good family that helps me and supports me. My parents have always encouraged me and told me that I could do whatever I put my mind to, and I just believe that. Um, so I think that's what that is.
Well, that's beautiful. I love that in your personality. It's so great to see that in others, and it's such an encouragement and an inspiration for sure for others, including myself, because like I was telling you before, like, several of my friends have lost their spouse very recently, and it's like, what do I have to complain about? Like
Right.
these women just lost their spouse, whatever is going on in my world, like is peanuts compared to what these women have had to deal with. So I really appreciate the fact that you can come on and share with others how you're getting through this and how we can look at our own lives and be like, hey, if Jenny can do this, or if so and so can do this, then what excuse do I have? I have none. Let me pick myself up here and lean on the Lord and get going here and into the next step here. So thank you so much for
Absolutely.
being that light and for being that encouragement and inspiration. So has there been a specific moment when you felt the Lord's presence in a way that gave you strength, comfort, or peace that you didn't really feel before?
Yes, and I have been really excited to share this because I have not told this publicly yet. But how ironic that I'm talking to you because you go to his church. But so after Mario passed, you have to find a burial spot. And my mother-in-law and I and some of my husband's family were out like touring cemeteries trying to find where we wanted to bury him. And obviously, it's a very overwhelming situation. And so I'm sitting in the car just having a horrible day. Um, and I get a DM, I get a Facebook message from Pastor Anderson, and it's him offering to for the church to pay for the hotel that I'm going to stay in at the King James conference up in Vancouver, Washington, for the King James conference.
Aw.
And that just came out of nowhere. I mean, it just blew me away. And I literally just burst into tears because, so, like I said, my husband passed on April 18th, and the King James conference was May 19th until like the 25th or something like that. So it was literally like a month after. But he and I had actually been talking about possibly going. Um, because I really wanted to go. I really wanted to like actually meet new ISB people. Um, so I just really wanted to. And then all this happens, and then I just feel just so devastated. But I think it was like the day after I posted on the the Facebook page that we have, and I said, would anybody be able to host my son and I at the conference for this conference? And I don't think anybody responded, but a few people liked the post. But I'm in a group chat with a family member of Pastor Anderson, and she saw my post, and so she reached out to him and said, "Hey, I know this girl, online. She's a really good friend of mine. Can you look out for her?" And so he reached out to me, and he pays for my hotel to go to the conference. So I only had to pay for the hotel for my flight. And my brother, he lives out in Washington State as well, so he was my transportation. So I only had to pay for the flight, and that just was a humongous burden lifted off of me. And I was able to go to my first new IFB event, and I just felt like, like I was just saying, like, why did God allow for him to be taken in the first place? I don't know. But that just felt like a hug. It just felt
Yeah.
like I'm still here.
Yeah.
I know you don't understand. I know it's hard, but I'm still here. You know, uh, his mercies endure forever. And so that really was special to me, and I'll never forget that.
That is so special. I love that. I didn't know any of that story. So thank you for sharing that with me. What a huge blessing. And I'm so happy, Jenny, for you. Out of all people that could have been done for, like, I'm so happy that they were all blessing you. Like, they all worked together, to do that for
Yeah.
you. So that was so thoughtful of them. How sweet. I love that. Um, are there any Bible verses or hymns or promises from scripture that you lean on the most during this time?
Yeah, one hymn that, once again, funny enough, so your church put out like this album, that you guys did. And one of the songs from it I had never heard before, called "Does Jesus Care?" And there's a line in the song where it says, "Does Jesus care when I've said goodbye to the dearest on earth to me?" And obviously that was speaking to me, and so I like that song a lot. I liked it before all this happened, but I like it even more now. Um, and a verse that I really like um, is I really like Second Samuel 22. I think it's Second Samuel 22:12. I could be mistaken, but it's where King David, he just finds out that his first son with Bathsheba passes away because that child was conceived in adultery. And he gets up and he washes his face, and his servants are all confused because they're like, "Wait, what's going on? When the child was alive, you were upset, but now that he's dead, you're getting up and eating." And he basically says that, like, you know, when he was alive, I fasted because I didn't know what God was going to do, but now he's dead. I cannot go to him. He cannot come back to me, but I can go to him. And
Right.
so that is like, my verse when it comes to this situation is like, you know, I wash my hands of the situation. I can't do anything about it now. He cannot come back to me, but I can go to him.
Right.
Um, and then another verse is that, if you look at the term widows and fatherless, that phrase comes up a lot. And so there's one, I think it's in Proverbs, maybe Psalms, where it says like he is near to the widow and the fatherless.
Right.
And so um, that's another verse that I really like. But that one is Second Samuel. That one I've been leaning on a lot lately.
That's beautiful. I love that. And so true. It's good to remember those verses, when we have lost loved ones, and I'm glad that you find comfort in that hymn as well. Those hymns are so comforting. So many people wonder how joy and grief can coexist. What has that looked like for you personally?
Um, I would say for me that, especially being that I have a son from this situation, um, so it's like, yeah, I'm very sad that like I lost my best friend, and I lost my partner, and I lost my mechanic and my plumber and my mathematician, and it's like I don't know what to do. Like I'm just out here floating around. It's like Mario, he was like my grounding rock to like stop me from going off and doing crazy stuff. um, but so it's like I'm sad. I've missed all the things that he was, to me. And then, seeing the loss that his family has, and being around them and seeing them grieve, that's all very sad. Um, but a major silver lining is my son, well, our son, and how I see him, and I see, like, when he makes certain faces, he looks just like his dad, and like when, like, his torso just looks so much like Mario's. Like, I just look at him and I'm just like, you sit just like him. Like, you're gonna look just like him when you're older. So, like, this is so much fun to watch him grow up, and to know that I get the privilege of carrying on my husband's legacy into the next generation. And God willing, my son, he's going to be a wonderful Christian, and he's going to get, hundreds of people saved, and he's going to have a really big impact for the kingdom of God. And I get the joy of facilitating that and teaching him. And so when we are reunited, you know, at the end, then I get to say, like, this is what I did with what you gave me. And, I just, wanted to honor your legacy and honor your memory. And so it's like, he's not here to see it firsthand and have a hand in it. But it's like the joy is that it's like I have the memories, and I get to, cultivate this future for our son.
That's so beautiful. That's so true too. I'm so glad that you are seeing this vision and that you have that vision for your son, and that someday you're going to show, Mario exactly, what you've been able to do with your son and together. So beautiful. I love that, Jenny. So what does choosing joy mean to you? Is it a daily decision, a mindset, a spiritual discipline? Can you tell us about your joy?
Um, I like the phrase choosing joy. I think that's really good because it really does have to be a choice. Because, like you were saying, you have problems in your life, and those are real and those are valid problems that you might be having. Your water heater might go out, or whatever. And it's like, just because other people are suffering doesn't mean that you're not suffering in your own right. And so it's like we all have to choose joy every day in our
Right.
circumstances.
Mhm.
Um, and so I would just say that for me, that um, it looks like it's more like a spiritual thing, because it's like I know that there's a time for everything. So there is a time to mourn, but there's also a time to rejoice. And
Right.
so um, I don't want to wallow. Like, God does not support us wallowing and being sorry for ourselves. Um, and so it's like some days they're harder, but it's like, I'm alive and I live in America. That's, I get
Right.
to choose joy because I wake up in America every day. I don't care what anybody says. I don't want to wake up anywhere else.
Right.
Um, and so just trying to be thankful. So I guess I feel like you cannot divorce choosing joy from choosing to be thankful and look on the positives. um and all things considered, I still do have a lot of positive things in my life, and so I just just try to thank God for what I have and not dwell on what I don't, and that's the main thing.
That's awesome. I love that so much. Yeah, it is so much. We do have to choose that every day, because when we don't, choose to be joyful, a lot of other feelings can creep in during the day, and sometimes we even have to like regroup. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself over here. Okay, we got to get back on the joy train over here.
Yeah.
So we could get thrown off our track a little bit. Some things can kind of irritate us, but we got to get back on track here. So, were there practical routines and habits that helped you keep going on your hardest days?
Yes. And so that is why you guys might not be able to tell what I'm doing right now, but I'm
You're
actually
on a
on a
walking
walking
pad or
pad.
something, girl.
Yeah. And so this has been one of my biggest things. My one of my the biggest practical things, that is exercise. So um, I try to do it outside, but we all can't live in sunny Arizona. So some of us have to endure the snow. Okay, so I'm not going outside today to do my daily walk. So I'm on my walking pad today. But
Good for you.
exercising, and especially exercising outside, have been humongous for me. Um, like sometimes I'll just be so stressed and just like so wound up because things like other things are just like piling on me. And I go on my walk and I come back and I'm like, okay, I can relax. Um, Another big thing is cleaning. I find that having a cluttered space just feel like it makes me anxious.
Hmm.
So just cleaning and organizing my space, it makes me feel more mentally clear. Um, Having other goals that I'm working towards that make me happy and seeing progress, that makes me happy. Um, so as your audience knows that you're a health coach and you're a weight loss guide. And so I took your program and I've been utilizing that to try to lose weight. I was 2 pounds away from my goal, and then Thanksgiving happened, and so we're a little off track, but we're getting back on it. So
You can do it,
um,
Ginny. You're almost there. You're
I
almost there.
am. I'm so close. I just can't let myself get distracted. So yeah, I'm working on that. Like I feel good, even though I have gained a couple pounds. I'm still way less than I was, and
Right.
so staying true to my goals that I've been wanting to do. Like it feels good to tell yourself that you're going to do something and then not lie to yourself. Like
Right.
fulfill a promise to yourself. That really boosts your mental health. Um,
Right.
and so I told myself I'm going to lose these 40 pounds, and I'm doing it, and so that feels really good. Um, I'm planning on getting debt free soon. I really want to do that. That's a promise I've been making to myself for years. Um, and so having new goals to look forward to, so you're always having things in the future that are before you. So like we were just saying, choosing to be joyful. So it's like I'm choosing to have fun, and I'm going to choose to, you know, press towards the high mark of calling of Christ Jesus, and lay behind those things that are before. You know that verse. I'm really
Yep.
bad about quoting the
And reach
verses, right?
forward. Yep. Exactly. I know the one
So
you're talking about.
yeah. So that's the main thing, really. A lot of mainly it's an exercise. That's my primary physical, practical thing that I've been doing to keep my mind clear.
That is so amazing that exercise is so good for our cortisol levels, our stress. So I'm really glad that when you feel yourself stressed out, you go for a walk and you come back and you actually notice yourself more calm. It actually helped that, cortisol spike. Which also, when we have a cortisol spike and we're stressed out, it spikes our insulin too. So it's not good for our health. So it's really good that you've implemented this, exercise routine that you're doing. And I'm really proud of you. And look at you, like sticking to your guns, even during a podcast recording. I mean, good job. Go, Ginny! Like this lady
Trying.
climbed a mountain while she was here in Arizona, you guys. I'll have to edit with a picture and show you guys. But she did an amazing job. So she is doing a lot of good things for her health. So I'm really happy for you, Miss Ginny. Okay, so what would you say about the grief, because it doesn't really follow a straight line, right? There's ups and downs. What were some of the expected emotions that you felt, and how did you work through them?
Well, they say that grief is like a 7-step thing where it's like denial, and then anger, and then bargaining. There's like a bunch of different steps, and then the last one is acceptance. And so I feel like I really did go through the gamut where it's just like, I feel like you hear things and you're like, oh no, that's stereotypical, or that's just what they say, but that's not really how it is. But I mean, we're all much more alike than we are different, and so yeah, um, I did feel angry, and I guess I wouldn't say that necessarily my anger was directed towards God, but I don't know, um, like there was anger, and then I think one of them is like bitterness or something, like looking at other people and who have what you no longer have, and you feel bitter towards them. Um, and so, um, like there were definitely, those expected feelings of like bargaining. It's like, oh God, like why is this bum on the street, that's asking me for my spare change? Why is he here and my husband isn't? It's like why couldn't you have taken him or her, whatever. So, those were the expected emotions. Um, but one thing I did not expect, which I've also heard of, is survivor's guilt. Now, I wasn't in the car with my husband during his accident, so I wasn't a survivor in that sense. But it's like, I've heard about people like who survive a plane crash, or, a boating accident, and they have survivor's guilt. And that never made any sense to me because why would I feel bad that I didn't die? But I can understand it now because it's like,
Mm.
a boy needs his father. MJ only needs me for like the first handful of years, but he's gonna need his dad for the majority of his life more, I feel like. And so it's like, God, like, why didn't you keep Mario? Like he needs Mario. So, I was struggling with that for a little while, but so that was really the number one thing that kind of surprised me with my whole with the grieving process because it's like, why do people feel that way? Like, survivor's guilt. That's just, I've always thought that was a very strange emotion. And then to feel it myself really took me aback.
Right, right. Okay, so how have you balanced giving yourself space to grieve while moving forward in your life?
Oh, okay. So I would say that trying to balance giving myself space to grieve is leaning on other people. Um, so, like, I can't do it all myself as a mother. Even if I was a single mother for another reason, um, like I definitely can't do it all myself. You know, for any reason. And so leaning on other people to help me, watch him for me. He's not old enough, I feel like, for me to like leave and be gone for hours, but just watch him while I'm in another room, you know, like
Hmm.
they're helping me do something where it's like, just being able to get up and shower and do my self-care and, like clean my room, like that give me that like 20-30 minutes of alone time that helps me a lot.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so um I mean, I'm not really the type of person to like turn down help. I'm not like super duper independent. But I really feel like when you're grieving you should just lean on people. Like if someone wants to bring you a meal, sure. If someone wants to, wash your car for you, sure. Just accepting the help.
Hmm.
um and that's really helped me a lot by just not being too proud to accept help, and that's helped me a lot, I would say.
That's great. That's great that you've had that help to be able to facilitate, being balancing with, the grief and moving on. So that's really great. So speaking of having helps, what role did your church or family play in helping you with everything?
Oh, so my family has played a humongous role. I live with my family now. Um, so my husband and I, we had our own little spot. We lived in a duplex. So it was like a shared house with another couple like on the other side of the building. Um, but since he's gone now and I don't work, so I live with my aunt and my dad. And so they're great. They my It's my aunt's house, and so she pays the mortgage and the utilities, and then my dad, he'll pay for like little things like he buys me gas and buys me food and helps me out. And so they've just been tremendous. And my mom, she lives like 4 states away, but it seems like I see her like every other weekend. So
That's
she's always
great.
around. Um, and then my husband's family, they've just been everything. Like my mother-in-law, she buys anything that MJ needs. He never goes without. Um, and then his dad's side, they watch him. I had food poisoning like 2 weeks ago, and I went over there and I slept, in their guest bedroom while they watched him like all afternoon. And so I mean, they couldn't be better, and that's one of the main things I'm very thankful for is the fact that I have such wonderful family. Um,
Really
because I
do.
was just talking to a friend of mine and she just had her third baby and she and her husband were kind of struggling because he was watching their two kids and she had to be in the birthing room alone because they didn't have family because their family is kind of all over the place, like mentally, not physically, like just not really supportive family.
Uh-huh.
Um, and so he had to watch their kids, and then she had to, deliver their third child. And so it's like, so yeah, when it comes to family, my family has been extremely supportive. I've been leaning on them in more ways than one. They've just rallied behind me. I really do have a village, as people used to say. And then my church also, because the question is say, family and church, they've been great. I had my son's birthday party at my church, so it was free and it was a nice venue, had good parking. So I love having all the events at my church. I feel like that's one of the benefits of being a member. But um, so yeah, I really have a lot of support, and I think that that makes all the difference. Um, and I thought about this also when my son was born, because a lot of women they have like postpartum depression,
Right.
and I think that I don't think it has as much to do with the baby itself as it does with your circumstances, because having a baby is a beautiful thing, but if you and the dad are not together, or if your family is not supportive, or if you don't really have as much money as you think you need, or if you have to go back to work in like 6 weeks, then these are all extenuating circumstances that can
Mhm.
kind of make you feel depressed after just having a baby that are not the baby themselves.
Yeah.
um, and so it's like, obviously I have enough stress going on, like directly, so it's like my
Mhm.
family and my church have just really helped lift that burden, as much as they can. So yeah, they've been
I'm
great.
so happy that you have the support that you do. That is so beautiful. You have a massive, really amazing support system. I'm so
Yeah.
relieved for you. Um, so, do you feel like God has revealed any new purpose or calling on your life yet?
Um, I don't know if I would say any new calling, but something that I had thought about a lot, before I ever got married, was that I would have liked to be a pastor's wife, because my dad is a pastor, and so that just always sounded good to me. And then, but I knew, like when I met my husband, that I knew that he was never going to be a pastor because that was never something that he wanted. Like he was really into being a mechanic, and I accepted that because I accepted him. But it's like, oh, well, this go around, like maybe I could become a pastor's wife like I had always dreamed about. So it's fun to think about that. And it's like, wow, that that has now been opened up to me again. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, we will see. We will see. Another question: how has this experience changed the way that you see life, marriage, eternity, or God's faithfulness?
I would say the biggest thing that has, out of those things, would be eternity, because I feel like we all like know what death is, like on a textbook level, but until you lose someone that is like really integral to your day-to-day life, that you really don't understand it. And eternity like just seems so far away, which it is, but it's not at the same time, because like we're all just like a heart attack away from eternity. But it's like, man, like my dad, today's his birthday, so shout out to my dad.
Happy birthday,
um
Dad!
and he turns 87 today.
Wow.
And so if I were to live to be 87, then that means that I would have to, mourn Mario for 60 years. Well, 61 years, because he died eight months ago. And it's like, man, that is a long time. Um, and so I feel like that concept of, you know, eternity, I guess more so that would be the concept of death, um, has really been shaken and like just blown out. It's like, man, life is really long, and, until it's not. But it's like, yeah. So I feel like that's really something I've been thinking about a lot. And then I guess also eternity, because it's like, you know, you want to get people saved, because like eternity is a long time. It's
Right.
like, yeah, 60 years is a long time, but that's nothing in compared to eternity. And it's like, do people really believe what they say? And it's like, when I go out and get people saved, like I'm really doing something important, because something could happen to this person where they're as strong as an ox one day, and then the next minute they're gone, and they're off into eternity. And it's like everything that's going to be said about them is already done.
Right.
So it's very sobering to think about.
Very sobering. True. True. What do you hope others will learn from your testimony, Jenny?
I guess I would say the number one thing that I hope that people learn from my testimony is that, um, I guess your circumstances don't shouldn't dictate your feelings or your outlook. You can still choose to be happy no matter what your circumstances are.
Hmm.
And so it's like people used to always get on me, like growing up, that like, of course that you're a Christian, of course you have this strong faith, of course you believe what you believe, because God has obviously been very good to you. Like I grew up, even though my parents were divorced, like I grew up really well, like middle class, upper middle class, maybe. Um, and like just didn't have to struggle a lot um and I just had a really good life. And I'm not gonna make any apologies about having a nice life. But
Yeah, you're
people
Christian
today,
privileged.
yeah, it's like
But they could
I don't
be
know,
too, right? They could be too if they choose that and they choose the joy of the Lord. They could be too, right?
yeah. And it's not that like because when you actually read the Bible, you find that people who have it really easy in life, they're oftentimes not Christians, and it's harder for them to get saved. And so this is just cope that people, try to project this stuff onto you, like, oh, of course you're happy, and of course you're a Christian because God has been looking out for you. But it's like, no, I just choose to be happy, and I choose to be a Christian. Um, and so, um, yeah. Um, so I guess the number one thing that I want people to take away from is that, your circumstances don't have to define how you're going to be, because you can have a good life, things are going well, everything is, made in the shade, and you can be miserable like, celebrities are,
Right.
or things can be bad and looking down, and you can still choose to be happy. And, I am an example of someone who is actively choosing to be happy, and you can do it too.
That's right. That's right. Thank you so much for that, Ginny. I love that so much. Would you mind sharing a final word of encouragement or scripture for anyone walking through their own difficult season right now?
Yeah. Um, Now, for me specifically, I I really like this verse because I heard a sermon where it was applied to motherhood. But in Ezekiel chapter 6, um, Ezekiel, he's like up on a mountain, and these people, they're trying to get him to come down because they're trying to sabotage him and they're trying to like get him. But he tells them, he's like, I cannot come down for I am doing a good work. And so I was listening to a sermon by our favorite pastor
Uh-huh.
where he equated that to motherhood, where people are going to try to like distract you and get you off
Right.
your square.
Right.
And but you need to tell them, I cannot come down for I am doing a good work, because motherhood is a good work. Um,
Hmm.
and so, um, like if a person is a widow and they have a child, then that needs to be their focus. Like, I cannot come down for I'm doing a good work. But if you're past that, or if you weren't able to have a child with your spouse, then just the good work of the Christian life, until you get remarried, because getting remarried is a good work that all young women who are widowed should be after. Um, in the interim, whatever you're doing to serve God, focus on that and don't get distracted. Like
That's
I had a friend of mine who I saw recently, and he met MJ, and he's a social worker, and he was telling me this guy, he's not saved. He's like an earthly guy, a worldly guy. But he was trying to convince me that you need to go back to school and you need to go to get a job because you need to support your son, and you need to just like postpone and like not focus on dating and getting remarried. I'm like, whoa, like it could not have been the more opposite of what I'm focusing on. And
right.
it's just like I'm thinking to myself, like, I cannot come down for I am doing a good work. And so like people are gonna try to tell you what you need to do and give you all this good advice about how you should be living your life. But I mean, take it with a grain of salt, because like, sometimes people are giving you good advice and they are guiding you, but always check it up with what the Bible says.
Right.
And so if you're doing what you know is a good work because it backs up with what the Bible says, you're soul winning, you're active in your church, you're going on a cruise mission trip, don't let anyone tell you to, get you off of what you're supposed to be doing.
That's right.
Um, so I guess that was what I would say, because you're gonna get if a person is in a situation like mine, you're gonna get a lot of unsolicited advice, and you need to be able to learn how to chew the meat and spit out the bones. And so,
Right.
yeah, just stay on
That
your
is
square.
amazing advice. Thank you so much for that, Ginny. That is awesome. And I totally love that you reminded me of that sermon, because that is great advice for any time we feel, like we're down. and we're having rough times and people are trying to distract us into doing things that are extra biblical or, that kind of thing that have, not the direction that we should be going based on what the Bible teaches. It's great that we can remember those verses and those stories from the Bible. No, I can't come down, like not getting ourselves distracted, with other things. That's such a great passage. Thank you for reminding me about what my pastor's preaching. So glad we can connect this way. So you have a YouTube channel, Jenny, called Fundamental, where you put the fun back in fundamental, and I love it. It is such a fun channel. Can you tell us about your channel and what kind of content can be expected there for those who might want to follow you there?
Yes. So yes, my channel, it's capital FUN, fundamental. And so I just try to make fun, interesting videos from the perspective of a Christian fundamentalist, because we are, the last of a dying breed, it feels like sometimes. And there's just such a dearth of good feminine role models. It's like, I feel like it seems like today the best that we have is Sydney Sweeney, who is bad. I don't know if you're familiar with her, but if this is the best that the conservatives have to offer when it comes to traditional values for women, then we're up a creek. And
Yeah.
so I want to be a good role model. In the beginning, I kind of started with the idea of my niece, but now she just turned like 13, and so it's like, man, how time flies. But I want to be a good encouragement for young women. Be a role model, I guess, which just sounds really daunting. But yeah, I do want to be a role model, and because there's really none, and I want to have a good testimony and show people, how it can be done. Like my husband and I, we were doing the whole traditional, sole breadwinner, wife stays at home
Mm-hmm.
thing, and it worked. People that tell you you can't do it, you can't afford it, it doesn't work, it's impossible now. It
It
works.
works.
People are doing it.
Yep.
So, there are still women who are submissive and traditional and, loyal, and, these things exist. And so, I want to uplift and show people that God's way still works in 2025 and 2026 forever,
Mhm.
because God's word is timeless.
That's exactly right. And I'm so glad and thankful that you have your channel because I think that, obviously we don't want to be considered like, some crazy prophetess and things like that. There's a lot of false teachers online. And so, I want to be careful what we teach online, but at the same time, there are so much, wrong people out there teaching the wrong things that are not biblical. They're not even using the King James Bible. And there's so much false information out there. And if we can at least, get them in, hook them in, and then send them to the real preaching, right?
Yeah.
Give them a few verses here and there and be like, okay, lady, this is actually how it's supposed to go. As a lady here, let me get you over to some real preaching. Obviously I don't believe we should be preachers, but, we should be, teaching the younger women and, how to love their husbands and love their children and godly things. And, so I'm really excited for us, Jenny, and other ladies who are on the right track like we are. And I am praying for you, Miss Jenny, you and MJ, that those next steps will be guided by the Lord and you'll be taken care of, by a new godly husband and all your dreams come true. I know that sounds really corny, but that's what I want for you.
Love
That's
it.
what I want for you,
I,
friend.
hey, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being here, Miss Jenny. Thanks so much for watching, everybody, and we'll see you back on the next podcast of Coffee and Grace with Amanda. Have a great day.
Be sure to like.